Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and there was a lot that happened shortly after I posted my video discussing Teyfun Cicek, or Taffeta Chuckleface, and the game Magic to Master. In fact, much of it happening over the course of the following day. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I highly recommend you do so in order to gain full context for what will be discussed here. And make no mistake, while this is an update video, it will most likely not at all be the end of the story, as there appears to be further legal disputes going on. So in this, we'll talk a bit more about what happened with the DMCA takedown strike on Callum Upton's video, what the developers emailed him, the continued misrepresentation of facts by Taffy Cacklewad, and the legal issues now being faced by Laniatus Games. So let's start off with the easiest bit: what happened with the DMCA takedown of Callum Upton's video. Now, this is one of the two high notes in this update that we have to discuss, which is the DMCA takedown filed against Callum Upton has been released. Now, as I said in the previous video, Callum did file a DMCA counter notification, which is the legal form of saying, screw you, this isn't copyright infringement and you'll have to sue me. In addition to that, Callum had confirmed with me that Laniatus Games had promised to release the DMCA takedown. However, it would appear that neither of those actions were needed, as it would seem YouTube themselves decided to reverse the DMCA takedown and reinstate the video. Now, I myself thought it odd that YouTube had acted on the DMCA takedown notice apparently sight unseen, meaning that the DMCA takedown was processed via a bot rather than manually reviewed. And I say that because I know from a great deal of personal experience, owing to the fact that when you pee in so many scammers and shady devs' morning Cheerios, you tend to make a few of them angry, that a channel of Callum's size, nearly 80,000, is afforded consideration when DMCA takedowns are filed against them. Now, all of the DMCA takedowns filed against me after I passed around the 40,000 mark, roughly half the size Callum's channel is now, were reviewed by a human. So yes, it surprised me, as Callum's video was so completely fair dealing because he's in the UK, that it seemed impossible to me that any sane or honest human being could possibly think otherwise. So Callum did post this screenshot to Twitter. Now in it, YouTube states that they did process his counter notification. However, they continue to state that the video was restored outside of the counter notification process, meaning that the video was restored regardless of his counter notification. And if YouTube was restoring the video based upon the DMCA takedown being released or reversed by Laniatus Games, Callum Upton would have received an additional email from YouTube stating that the party who had filed the claim had released it. That is not what the email says. It says that the content was restored outside of the counter notification process. And what this tells me is that YouTube did something that is always unexpected in this day and age: their jobs. They reviewed the botted takedown, determined it to be invalid, and restored the video of their own volition. So, credit where credit is due. And within Callum Upton's update video discussing all of this, he shows where he was sent probably one of the worst things that Teyfun Cicek could have done in terms of legality of the DMCA takedown he'd filed against Callum Upton's video. He admitted fault. Now, in what he sent to Callum, he wrote, "I just wanted to let you know that we've emailed YouTube's copyright team as well as responded to the original request, stating in both that we retract our claim and would like your video to be reinstated. I'm incredibly sorry about this situation that has occurred and regret any and all of these actions that were taken against you. I had been given bad advice by people in my company that resulted in a lot of incredibly bad decisions that ultimately resulted in the spurious and false DMCA claim we made against you." Now, one of the things that a lot of people continue to this day to fail to comprehend is that DMCA takedowns are not a feature or process controlled by YouTube. It is not YouTube's rules and guidelines determining their implementation of the DMCA takedown process that they have. No, the DMCA, or Digital Millennium Copyright Act, is United States law, and that process is required by that law in order for YouTube to operate as a platform and service provider. Without that process, YouTube would be legally liable for any, and I do mean any, copyright infringement that occurs on their platform. When filing a DMCA takedown notice, YouTube informs you that you must agree under penalty of perjury that you are affirming your copyright has been violated. And in a few examples of US case law, the courts have also made it clear that fair use must be considered before a DMCA takedown notice is filed, again, under penalty of perjury. So, by Teyfun Circumspect's admission that the takedown itself was spurious, if Callum so desired, he could turn right around and sue Laniatus Games for punitive damages as well as actual damages, which admittedly would be a very small amount in terms of absolute dollars and very difficult to quantify. Not to mention it would cost Callum, a person who lives in the UK, to sue an LLC registered in Colorado where the actual people reside in Turkey and Portugal, and I'm guessing one other place as well, because it does seem that there is at least one employee of this company, albeit seemingly unpaid for the majority of the time. It would cost him an absurd amount of money that he more than likely would not be capable of recouping, owing to the fact that after our discussions with them, we were very much left with the impression that they are, for all intents and purposes, a penniless company. But while it would be financially unwise for Callum to do so, from a legal standpoint, he very much could if he chose to do so, and Laniatus would have an exceptionally difficult time, if not well-nigh impossible, to convince a judge to rule in their favor. Also, I do want you to keep that little bit about Turducken Seaweeds blaming his actions on others in the back of your mind, as that will become a relevant point to make later on. But under normal circumstances, this is essentially where this entire escapade normally does and should have ended. Game dev did bad things. Game dev gets called out for doing bad things. People are made aware to stay away from bad dev doing bad things. All is right with the world. But that is seemingly only the end of Act 1. Whereas Act 2 gets even more ridiculous than that, and what will become Act 3 is likely to get crazier still. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is not the beginning of the second act in this little Dirty Devs play. No, this is in fact a missing piece of the very beginning of the first act. This is the cease and desist style email that was sent to Callum Upton that acted as the second prong of a two-pronged targeting of Callum's original video, with the other prong, of course, being the DMCA takedown notice. And this email is so completely and utterly backwards that it warranted an actual breakdown just to show the insanity involved here. And bear in mind that I will not be reading this through in its entirety and then picking it apart. There's simply too many different aspects to take in for that. So instead, let's take it bit by bit. Firstly, this email is sent from legal@laniatusgames.com, implying that this is from Laniatus's legal department. Now, in addition, this email was sent on June 7th, a few days before the DMCA takedown notice was filed with YouTube. Now, this person, allegedly calling themselves Finyo B, of course with no last name, merely an initial, and whom I suspect is actually Taffeta Sillyputty, wrote, "My name is Finyo B. I am writing on behalf of my employer, Laniatus LLC. I am writing to address a serious matter concerning the infringement of the rights of Idea Fabric PLC, Laniatus LLC, and their affiliated trademark Hero Engine in your recent video. This article is a legal warning regarding the lawsuit that has already been filed and or will be filed against you, and I request you to read it carefully." Now, right off the bat, one can safely deduce that this email is deliberate intimidation, and notice they use the word trademark, not copyright. They're basically saying, you did us dirty and we will sue you, that is, if we haven't already. I'm not sure if we have or not, so I'm just going to write this as an and or just in case, because that's how those lawyery type people sometimes talk, like I saw on TV. Alleged Finyo B continues, "Your video has flagrantly caused significant and irreparable commercial harm to our legitimate company/companies under the false pretense of a Kickstarter scam. Furthermore, your baseless and unfounded comments about our campaign have put us, our companies, our trademark, and our campaign in an extremely challenging position. These comments lack any factual or reasonable basis." And again, there we have that word again, trademark. Additionally, they of course provide no information about what comments were made that they had such a problem with, and they also seem incapable of discerning the difference between statements of fact and opinion, something that I know full well that seems to be an issue these days where more than one person has gone down the litigious route in order to be an insufferable piece of filth and waste of oxygen, but that is a tangent that we'll get to another day. Now they continue, "Prior to sending this communication, we are providing you with prior notice in accordance with the rights granted under the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. Our company have downloaded your video archived it, and prepared it for submission to the Boulder, Colorado State Attorney's Office without any additions, deletions, or edits. Which is both an illegality and a nonsensical statement. Prior to sending this communication, meaning the email that we're reading right now, we are providing you with prior notice in accordance with the GDPR. So before we send you this email, we are telling you in this email that we did a thing, which makes no sense whatsoever. How can one send information stating that the information is being sent before the information you were currently sending? I guess Fenyo B is a Time Lord or capable of warping the space-time continuum, because that is what it would take in order for that sentence to make sense in the slightest. Laniatus' legal representatives, ladies and gentlemen, and now we all know why. If they were to sue Callum Upton over that video, he would be legitimately in no danger, as a dirty diaper would be capable of more coherent representation. Secondly, Fenyo B here just admitted to a crime. Ironically enough, that crime would be copyright infringement, because it is actually a violation of a person's copyright to simply download their video, even if they claim they're intending to use it as evidence. Now, you can download a video and utilize it within a work that is licensed or conforms to fair use. However, simply intending the download for that purpose is not good enough. It must actually be used for one of those purposes. If you're downloading that video footage as evidence, you are breaking the law, at least in the United States. If you want that information used as evidence and obtained in a legal manner within the United States, which is where they are claiming their company to be, it must go through the legal system and the authorities will obtain it, usually through a court order for the original footage to be turned over, a subpoena to YouTube, or a warrant for law enforcement to obtain it. Fenyo B says, "Now I will address this letter by breaking it down into several sections to ensure clarity and comprehensiveness." Well, that would be a fantastic start, because you haven't done it yet. And oddly enough, that's the exact same thing that I'm doing here, except I, my dear Fenyo B, am much better at it than you appear to be. Misrepresentation of facts. The individuals who contacted you from Bulgaria and encouraged you to publish this content without verifying its authenticity are involved in concealing a genuine fraudulent activity. It is highly concerning that you would cause severe damage to a commercial company/entities without verifying the credibility and authenticity of the matter. Now, from Callum's video, he states in no uncertain terms that the person who told him to take a look at the Kickstarter page was a fan that he had met while he was on vacation in Bulgaria, which is cool. However, being this person's identity was in no way divulged, Fenyo B is engaging in some wild speculation here as to the person's identity. Did they just automatically assume that this fan who happened to be from Bulgaria was a Bulgarian they had a beef with previously? That's the only reasonable conclusion I can think of here. And publish this content without verifying its authenticity. Callum was looking at your own Kickstarter page. What does he need to verify when literally everything he covered in that video was pulled from what Laniatus Games themselves wrote for and on their Kickstarter page? Are they expecting Callum to come to them, copy-paste what they wrote on Kickstarter and ask, "Did you write this?" Now, that sort of nonsense gives me flashbacks of the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial.
An article entitled, "Where Did It All Go Wrong for Johnny Depp?" After a string of flops and a ton of bad press, Johnny Depp's star power looks as wobbly as Jack Sparrow on a plank. Did I read that right?
You read that very, very well.
The next one, Hollywood Reporter.
Frankly, it is unreasonable, and in fact irrational, to expect a YouTuber, or anyone for that matter, to go to you, Laniatus Games, to verify the veracity of the information when it is you who are putting that same information out to the world. The data, the context, all of it is drawn from the Kickstarter page entirely. They continue, infringement of intellectual property rights. So this is going to be fun. The video infringes upon the trade rights of Idea Fabric PLC, Laniatus LLC, and their affiliated trademark Hero Engine, Hero Cloud, the unauthorized use of our trademark, there it is again, and the dissemination of false information regarding our campaign have caused significant harm to our reputation and business interests. First off, let's get this out of the way right now. The issue you actually have with Callum's video involves copyright law, not trademark law, and anyone who is a lawyer, or who's even attempting to pretend to be one, which is a crime in the United States in its own right, should or would know the difference between the two. Secondly, even if this was in regards to trademark, let's go ahead and break that down for you, shall we? Callum Upton is a YouTuber. He has a YouTube channel. Magic to Master is an MMO. Whether it be a legitimate to modded version of Metin2 repackaged or otherwise, it is still an MMO. Is there a substantial similarity between a YouTuber and an MMO? No, they are completely different. Is Callum selling a product within his video that is substantially similar or uses substantially similar branding or names to Magic to Master? No, he is not. In fact, even if this were a trademark case, which it is not, there is such a massive difference between the two that no reasonable person would ever be capable of confusing which is the bedrock of what a trademark dispute would be. In addition, if any of the actual information Callum related was untrue, then that is through your own actions, Laniatus Games, as the only information used was, again, from your own Kickstarter. And if that information caused you harm, well again, that is on you, not on Callum Upton. And if you happen to think that expressing an opinion is causing you harm, well then perhaps you should stop spending so much time on social media dyeing your hair rainbow colors and screaming like a banshee. Those of you that know what I'm talking about will know. Those who don't, I won't bother explaining it to you as it's not what needs to be focused on. Defamation and slander. Your baseless and unfounded comments in the video can be construed as defamatory and slanderous, as they damage the reputation and goodwill of our company/entities. We consider these statements to be libelous and a deliberate attempt to harm our commercial interests. And again, this coming from an alleged legal representation. So to be clear,
it is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
Also, as Laniatus LLC is a registered corporation in the state of Colorado, they do need to be aware of the United States Constitution, where freedom of speech is constitutionally protected, and that includes expressions of opinion. So whether those opinions hurt your company or your feelings, it realistically doesn't matter. As we're dealing with 4 different countries being involved, the United States, the UK, Portugal, and Turkey, where Laniatus LLC is based in the US, as well as YouTube is headquartered in the US, there is the US Constitution. In the UK, which is where the expression of opinion occurred, because that's where Callum lives, well, they do not have constitutionally enshrined freedom of speech, but they do have Article 10 of the Human Rights Act, which for this instance essentially has the same effect. The Laniatus Games can think Callum's opinion is defamatory all they want, it doesn't make it true or legally actionable. Legal consequences. We want to make it explicitly clear that we'll pursue all legal avenues available to us to protect our trade rights and seek appropriate compensation for the damages inflicted upon our company/entities. These may include filing a lawsuit against you, seeking an injunction to remove the video, and claiming damages for the harm caused. And that last bit there is essentially a summation of what this entire email was. A poorly worded intimidation letter sent with what seemed to be the intention of attempting to bully Callum into removing his video. And that email, which again was sent prior to the DMCA takedown, helps to provide us with further context as to the mindset of Teabag Carmelin, a person with what appears to be an exceptionally short fuse, shorter than mine even, and is yet one more piece of evidence on the pile of Laniatus Games weaponizing the DMCA, attempting to use legal action as a sword of Damocles over Callum Upton's head, and failing that, abusing the DMCA as a hammer to attempt to beat him into submission. At least until they realize that the Streisand effect is indeed a thing, and they have since begun the finding out portion of what happens when one goes about with the fucking of arounds. But that at least closes out Act 1 of this sad little play. Now let's take a look at Act 2. On June 14th, Callum was on the Magic to Master Discord, and I decided to join him there. Once there, we engaged in discussion with a person who claimed to be one of the developers who was going by Deus Z on their Discord. But for quite a while, we were discussing everything with Deus Z, who stated that they were not Tilly Szechuan and were just one of the developers trying to help answer questions, as the Magic to Master developers wanted to be more open. So we spent an agonizing amount of time attempting to get questions answered by this person, which was hampered by 2 different things. The first was that it was through text, and while Callum and me were doing our utmost to remain patient, accepting that this form of communication is going to be slower than one might prefer, especially with a non-native English speaker who was, according to them, trying to take questions one at a time and also trying to understand the questions as they were being assisted by Google Translate, at least according to them. And the second limiting factor was the fact that they had the words Metin2 and Gameforge banned by their auto mod. Now, this was a point of contention over honesty, which Callum picked up on as their team, specifically Deus Z, claimed that those words had been auto-banned by their automod bot for years, and this person had no control over that, and Callum caught Deus Z out in a lie in that regard, as the automod is only now 1 full calendar year old, having been released on June 16th of 2022. One additional outright lie that was told was in regards to NFTs. Now, the information came in regards to the Magic to Master stretch goals, where they were planning on implementing an NFT pet system to the game. That was reported on by Massively OP. Turmeric Chewy Root then posted an FAQ on the Kickstarter stating that NFT stood for, quote, necessary features tree. But one thing they did share with us, obviously not thinking too clearly, was the roadmap for their game, where it clearly and with zero uncertainty stated Blockchain Community Shop Q1 of 2025. Which, if this is going to be a game that monetizes itself through NFTs, fine. A foolish design choice, but a design choice nonetheless. However, to once again turn around and lie about it by trying to claim it as something else, not to mention such a nonsensical phrase as necessary features tree. And why do I say nonsensical? Well, a feature tree is a hierarchical model of organization. This organizational model is typically used to scope out an entire project. The word necessary was slapped on to fit the initials needed in order to claim that the NFT pets were not what they actually were. Again, a lie. Now, initially, Deus Z asked to stream his desktop to show us that Magic to Master is not Metin2, which amounted to little more than showing us that they have a bunch of stuff in Hero Engine. However, they did tell us a couple of things in regards to Metin2 Mester, or MT2 Mester I should say, that would warrant some update clarification in terms to the previous video. MT2 Mester is, as I had stated in the previous video, a modified private server build of Metin2. This we know to be a fact and was confirmed by Deus Z, after much tooth pulling. We also know from this that there was a lawsuit between Laniatus Games and Gameforge previously where they ended up settling. Whereas part of that settlement, Laniatus was forced to pay Gameforge $600,000 as well as turn over the public domains they had for Metin2 Mester. Something I had previously found when the Hungarian URL for Metin2 Mester redirected to the Gameforge website, so that was one mystery solved at least. An additional bit of information that the developers shared with us after what seemed like an endless number of attempts made by me, the Naga level where I had found those direct one-to-one comparisons that you saw in the previous video were originally created by Laniatus for their modded private Metin2 server, Metin2 Mester, aka MT2 Mester. So the comparisons I showed there now no longer proved anything, except the custom level they had made for their modified Metin2 server exists within their Magic to Master game. The Laniatus developers also expressed to me that Magic to Master itself is 100% designed by them, with absolutely zero Metin2 code within their build, which raised a very significant question for us. As when Deus Z was sharing the screen with us, we saw that within there, that under their Magic to Master folder directories, they are maintaining the Fliga v3 folder, which when you look that up, you're shown that this is Metin2, specifically the server files for the game. In addition, we see the Metin2 Mester Patcher SDK, as well as the M2M-1 variant folder. So what he was showing through there was that they were holding on to their modified server build for Metin2. We also saw in this screenshot that while Deus Z was sharing their screen with us, this person was also logged into the Discord web interface as root and typing into the File Explorer search bar, I am Teyfun, confirming for us that Deus Z is indeed Turpentine Sillyfucker, despite protestations by him to the contrary. So we have Laniatus Games, who was sued by Gameforge for trademark infringement, where that resulted in a settlement where Laniatus was forced to pay $600,000 in 2013, where in a now deleted LinkedIn post, Temporal Celerity was seeking $120,000 for funding and €3 million for investment capital. Not sure why the different monetary denominations, and we'll likely never know the reason. We also have them directly importing all of the content that they had made for their modded Metin2 server into Magic to Master. They also admitted to similarity with Metin2 with some of the assets. So what I suspect, and granted I have zero evidence of this so far, so take it as purely speculative on my part, but it would be a fair deduction to make, is that they want to recreate their MT2 Mester game faithfully. Or at least Taffeta Chucklefart does, as he saw this as a huge money-making opportunity. So they got to work essentially copying MT2 Mester using their own code into Magic to Master via the Hero Engine, which would also account for the substantial similarities in terms of the look and feel of the game, the Eastern setting, monster designs, and so much more. And it is also likely because of those specific issues that a new player stepped onto the stage, and that would be Gameforge. Now, as people who were watching a great deal of this outside of the videos made by Callum Upton and myself are already aware, Gameforge does not take kindly to their copyright or trademark being interfered with in any way. Gameforge themselves had previously earned a reputation for pay-to-win being forcefully injected into games that they had published. Gameforge now seems to have reversed much of that reputational damage, but for many gamers, it was too little, too late. Regardless, at least in the Western world, as the Metin2 publisher, they hold the copyright for Metin2, and as such they have decided that Magic to Master has violated their copyright. To that end, Gameforge has already submitted DMCA takedowns of the Magic to Master game footage on Laniatus' YouTube channel, which has resulted in that channel's removal, and have also submitted a copyright takedown to the game's Kickstarter where they state, "The infringing content uses stolen parts of the Metin2 game engine and pretends them to be their own product. Members of their team have been associated with Gameforge in the past. Legal actions against these persons are already on their way. We, Gameforge, are not related to this infringement nor accept illegal activities associated with it." Now, as of my recording this video, the Magic to Master store page on Steam is still up. However, that and other areas show how, despite Laniatus has claimed that they wish to be open and honest about everything, the Discord channel in which Callum and me engaged with Deus Z aka Root aka Tallywhacker Sliptyfwick is set to where I'm unable to view the post history of that channel, and some have said that those discussions have been deleted, although I cannot confirm that because I'm blocked from viewing the post history. Tallmouse Swiftyboo has also removed any and all LinkedIn posts that Callum and me have shown in our videos, the IndieDB post, and are purging dissenting comments on the Steam Discussions forum. And from that, we can be certain that Gameforge is preparing a lawsuit against Laniatus Games, something that they have had to do in the past. And despite Laniatus' claims that Gameforge will fall and it will be a grand victory, I have chosen to not respond to that statement nor engage with it, content to sit back and see what information is shown in court. So, what we're left with at the beginning of this third act is a games company CEO who has lied repeatedly, lied via the fake game reviews, lied about NFTs, lied about being open and honest, lied about even who they are when talking to people in their Discord, a CEO who blamed the spurious DMCA strike he filed against Callum Upton on an employee, who blamed Massively OP for the harm caused by them having the unmitigated gall to report that they did not review this game, where he then blamed a Nigerian Fiverr developer for the fake reviews. Repeated lies, attempting to silence critique, lying to those critics even while those critics are attempting to keep an open mind, using intimidation tactics via misrepresenting themselves as an attorney in a manner that not only failed completely and utterly to comprehend basic law, but to openly admit to infringing Callum Upton's copyright within that intimidation letter as well. Gaslighting people all the while, and Tachyon Sliptywick blaming anyone and everyone whenever his lies are discovered. Because heaven forbid that one accept accountability for one's own actions. Heaven forbid the CEO of a company, even if it is a company of volunteers, even attempt to comport himself with a modicum of decency. These aren't petty things that we're discussing here. At a fundamental level, everything about this man's interactions are the epitome of a dirty dev. Silencing critique, legal threats, gaslighting, and lies. I've said it before, but I'll say it again because Teyfun Cicek deserves to hear it right, and I hope to hell he takes it to heart. The DMCA is meant to be a shield to protect copyright holders in the digital world. In the world of YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, Kick, and other arenas, such copy protections, while extremely flawed and adopt a guilty until proven innocent approach, a shield for copyright holders needs to exist. It has to. But you have taken that shield, twisted it into a hammer, and have attempted to use it to beat Callum down for daring to question your crowdfunding campaign because you didn't like what he had to say. The DMCA should never be used as a cudgel to attack people. Do you think Gameforge is doing the same to you? Well, too goddamn bad. You should have thought about that before you called so much attention to yourself by attempting to silence critique. And even though you abused the DMCA in that manner, Gameforge, by comparison, is not doing that. They are not silencing critique. It appears they have a good faith belief that this game is a copy, albeit a modified copy, but a copy still of Metin2. Are they correct or are they mistaken? Well, the courts will decide that. But regardless of the outcome, you, Teyfun Cicek, are poison to your own company and a poison to this industry. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in this third and hopefully final act just as much as you seem to be. But that will not change the fact that you are a liar, a deceiver, a gaslighter, and a despicable excuse for a developer. But one more time so you can hear it plainly and clearly. Welcome to the Dirty Devs, Teyfun Cicek. I hope you enjoy your stay. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I'll see you next time.